Tell me about your book. How did that come? How did you decide to write your book, and how did that come about?
Yeah, I've never written a book. That was my first book. It was because all these entertainment writers and stuff, everybody was following my coverage, and we're an afternoon paper. You know, at the time, the Las Vegas Sun was competing with the Review Journal, which is morning paper, and I was beating them. I had cops inside talking to me, you know, and then I was on the street. I was going everywhere. I was talking to everybody, and the frustration was clearly they didn't want to solve the case. So I love a challenge. And my thing was, okay, they don't want to solve it. I'm going to write a book about it and tell everybody about it because, and I was at the hospital when, so I was at the crime scene, and then I was at the hospital when Tupac died. And so I interviewed his mother, I interviewed Afeni, I interviewed Valletta Wallace as well after Biggie Smalls was killed. And I interviewed so many. I was on a TV show with Afeni Shakur. She wasn't about solving her son's murder. She was about keeping his legacy alive, his essence, his music, his poetry. Whereas Valletta Wallace, when Biggie Smalls died, she was all about solving it. But Afeni was more. There wasn't anything she could do to bring him back, so her thing was to keep him alive. She was there that Saturday, by the way. She was there.
What was your interaction with her like? Like the first time you met her and all? Do you remember?
Well, I called her. She worked for a law firm at the time, so I called her law office and I talked to an attorney there, and then I asked if I could speak with her, and she was unavailable. And then I tried again, and then she spoke with me, and then I was on that BET show with her. And I sat right next to her, and somebody said, "Didn't she get angry with you?" And I said, "No, she was just all about keeping his voice out there and keeping him alive through his work. And she wasn't about, she didn't get into weeds over stuff like that. You look at where she came up from, and then where Tupac came up from, it's pretty amazing, you know, and she's very sweet. She was very, very polite, very nice to me. And Valletta was too. Valletta invited me to her Teaneck, New Jersey home. I was in New York. That Biggie Smalls left for her.
Right.
And she invited me over, and I interviewed Valletta Wallace. May they both rest in peace. They're both gone.
What was the scene at the hospital like while Tupac was still alive?
I was there the last, we checked in. There was another reporter who would go and check in. We would check in every day. I would go in, and I of course would call the main doctor a lot. I got the doctor directly, so I could tell his, you know, he had all those younger singers who were in his posse, you know, who were with him, and and Afeni was there. His mother was there. His aunt came in from Carolina. She was there. And I think his mom came in from Atlanta. And you could just tell a change that he wasn't, because I would call every day to get the status on him. He was still in a coma. And they had to open him up 2 times. It was the third or the fourth. It's in my book. Because they would sew his lung back up. They removed one lung, he had one left. It kept ripping open. And so when they were gonna open him up again and do it, Afeni said, no. The word spread that he was going to die. And you could just tell the atmosphere. I remember one of his backup singers, was crying, and it was just sad to watch. And the whole scene was, and this was at the trauma unit, so there's just one small door, and I was leaning. There's a picture of me with Suge Knight coming past me, and Suge came in to see him, and he had his homies behind him. And Suge Knight came in and walked in. They wouldn't let him past the security, because at a trauma unit, there's always a security officer. and that's nothing new. That's what was set up. And I knew something was going on. Nobody talked very much, and I just waited for the doctor to come out. The doctor came out. I was the only print media there, and one TV station, and we were an afternoon paper, and they held the paper for me. And I interviewed him, got all the details, time of death and the cause and what happened. And then I took my reporter's notebook and I wrote the story, and I took my radio to the city desk and I called it in, and we broke news, including The Guardian in England picked up and we were the first, picked up my story. The Las Vegas Review-Journal didn't yet have an internet, and we had just gone on a few months earlier online, and so we punched it out there, and we were the first to break the story, and I'm quite proud of doing that. I mean, I don't like the moment because of what it was, but word spread pretty quickly. And that's how my name got out there, was because I was covering it quite a bit. And that's kind of how, and everybody was contacting me.
Do you remember some of the early stories of the case that you broke when you were in the early covering it? As things developed?
I broke when the biggest one initially after was one of Tupac's homeboys lived in New York, and he got in a fight and was killed. And so people were trying to say, oh, it was, it was part of it. Had nothing to do with it. I think he was at a low-income housing project, one of the projects.
That was Fula, yeah.
Yeah, Yafa Fula got killed. And so everybody's trying to tie, or see if it was tied, was it because he was there with Tupac? It wasn't, had nothing to do with it, it was just a beef. He was young. I mean, I saw him out there. Those guys were all hanging out by at the hospital. So the outlaws were at the hospital, but it was Danny Boy, who I was standing kind of by the curb. I'd parked and I came up and I was talking to a couple of people. I think there's only one or two reporters there. We all were kind of coming in and out, and but there was clearly that if we were in the room, you'd say the room changed, the atmosphere changed. And there's Danny Boy I was probably there about 30 minutes, and I just waited it out. And he just broke down, dropped to his knees, and just broke down and cried. And it's sad for me right now talking about it.